Hi everyone. By the end of this video, you should be able to calculate and interpret the slope of a line. We're going to continue from our plotting points video and using the context about Miss Mancini's candle business. So just a reminder, X is the number of candles sold, so your quantity sold, and the Y represents the profit at that time. In the last video, we came up with these points. I've just gone ahead and plotted them for you all and connected the dots so you can see the actual line of Miss Mancini's candle business profit. Now we're going to go ahead and calculate the slope of this line and see what it tells us about the business. But first we should define what slope is. So slope, in general, break this off to the side, is a measure of steepness. Okay, so whenever I think of slope, I think of the slope of a mountain. You can have a really steep mountain. You know, if you were skiing, you'd go really fast. You could have a not so steep mountain, you'd go a little bit slower. And that's what slope measures, is how steep is that incline? How steep is that line? Okay, so that's what slope is. How do you calculate it? Slope is a ratio meaning division, of how much you rise from one point to another on a graph to how much you run. When we're talking about rise on a graph, we're talking about going up and down. And when we're talking about going up and down, we're talking about our y coordinates. So how much are you going up? We'll be talking about y coordinates. Okay, run, you're talking about how much you go left or right on a graph. Okay, so when we're talking about left or right on the graph, we're talking about our x coordinates. So it's a ratio of how much you rise and run between any 2 points on the graph. And I'll even write that down. Between any 2 points on a line. Okay, so to give you an example, I'm going to pick 2 points on this graph. Doesn't matter what 2 points. Maybe I'll pick, get an easy start, these 2. Okay, when we're talking about slope and we're trying to figure out this incline, we measure it by figuring out how much you have to go up, and I guess in this case to the right, to get to the next point. Okay, so I'm going to draw that here. So to get from the first point to the second point, to go up that much, and then you have to go to the right that much. Okay, and let's figure out exactly how much that is. We're going to start with the up. So when we're talking about up, we're traveling on the y-axis. So in terms of the y-axis, this is 50, which means we're going up by 10s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So to get from here to here, I have to go up 50, 60, 70, 80 units. Okay, so that would mean we go up 80 units, our rise is 80 units. Since we're traveling this way, we're going up, that's positive 80. Now to get to the point, you not only have to travel up, but you also have to go to the right. How much do you have to go to the right? Well, if we're looking at the right, we're talking about our x-axis. So you got to figure out where we are on the x-axis here and where we end here. So since this is 10, these go up by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we start at 12, and we go 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So how many units are between 12 and 20? We'd have to go 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, since we're going from left to right, we're going this way. We're going positive on the x-axis, so it's also a positive 8. You don't really need those plus signs, but I'm putting there to make a point. And slope is a ratio of how much you rise, how much you run. So at the end of the day, we want to write that as a ratio, rise over run. So our slope is 80 over 8, although that can be simplified because both of these are divisible by 8. 80 divided by 8 is 10. 8 divided by 8 is 1. So our slope then is 10 over 1, which is the same thing as just saying 10. I want to pick another 2 points and see what happens when we calculate the slope again. So I'm going to pick, I don't know, just for fun, let's pick this point and this point. Okay, so between these 2 points, here's my rise, here's my run. Let's say we start with this point and go to this point. We have to go down and then to the left. So let's calculate our slope. Let's count on the graph. So how much do we go down? Again, these go by 10s. So we're going down 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And since we're going down on the graph, we're getting more negative. We're going from positive to negative. So to express that, we would say that's down negative 50. Okay, now to go to my left, again, these go by 2s. I'm going 2, 4, and then we're in between the middle here, so that's actually 1 unit, so we're going 2, 4, 5. Okay, but we're also going more negative on the x because we're traveling to the left, so we'll call that a negative 5. Now if we write that as our slope is rise over run, we have negative 50 over negative 5. Okay, 50 and 5 are both divisible by 5. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So that would actually be positive 10 again as our slope. Okay, negative divided by negative is a positive. Simplify that, 50 divided by 5 is 10. So what I'm trying to show you here is no matter which 2 points you pick, if you have a line, the slopes will be the same. And that's actually what makes this data linear. Okay, a linear relationship has a constant rate of change. So the way you increase here or you incline here is the same to here, is the same to here, so on and so forth. Okay, constant rate of change means a constant slope. So any 2 points you pick on the graph, the slope should be 10. Which answers our first question, why is the graph linear? Okay, and to answer our second question, what is the slope of the line? Well, the slope of the line is 10. You can also write it as 10 over 1. Either one's fine. So the next question is the most important question, is what does a slope even mean? Why do we care? So as I said before, it measures steepness. So this line, you know, is pretty steep because you're rising 80, but you're only running 8. You know, if you were rising 8 but running 80, would look more like this. You'd get a less steep line. Okay, so it kind of tells us a lot about the structure of the line. Okay, but for our business, it actually tells us a lot. So I want to kind of go back to the graph to answer this question. So when we went up 80, what that really means is you're going up $80. Okay, we said our y-axis represents profit. So when you go up 80, it means you're going up $80. And our x-axis represents quantity sold. So when we said we went over 8, we were going up 8 on quantity sold. So you sold 8 more candles. Okay, now to simplify that and kind of come back to this, we said that the simple line is 10 or 10 over 1. I personally like to write it as 10 over 1 to answer this question, is what does it mean? I'm going to express what I just said above in some words here. So in the numerator, when we said 10, we went up $10 in context. In the denominator, when we said 1, that means we went up 1 on the quantity sold. Or we sold 1 more candle. Okay, so if you kind of read this and interpret this, what it means is for every $10 you make, you sell 1 candle. You sell 1 more in quantity. Or you can go backwards and say for every 1 you sold, you make $10. So what that 10 really represents, or what our slope really represents, is our selling price. Which actually makes a lot of sense. If you look at the graph, we started in debt at negative $120. And we broke even here, which was at 12. Okay, if we sell 12 at $10 a piece, we'd make $120. So that all kind of comes together and makes sense. So now I just want to summarize everything for you and show you how you'd calculate slope if you didn't have a graph with an equation. So first, we know slope is not run, but rise over run. But how do I calculate that with an equation? I'm going to help you derive this by looking at the graph here. So I'm going to pick another 2 points on this graph. Say these 2 points up here. And I'm going to look at these numbers. So by counting on the rise, I go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And on the run, we're going 1, 3, 5. Okay, so just counting, that was really easy. But if I didn't have a graph, how would I calculate that? Okay, when you're going up 50, you're talking about the y coordinates. So on the y, I want to know where we're starting and where we're ending. So on the y-axis, we're actually starting at, so this is 100, 110, 20, 30. This y-coordinate would be 130. And this y-coordinate would be 180 then. And what's 180 minus 130? It's 50. Okay, to find the distance between these two, you just subtract them. And you can also do this on the table. So here are the 2 points I'm looking at. So these 2 rows here. 180 minus 130 is 50. Okay, let's do something similar on the x-axis. So figure out where we are on the x-axis and how far we are between them. So on this part of the x-axis, we're between 20 and 30. So this x-coordinate is 25. And this one is on the 30. And what's the distance between 25 and 30? Right? So I guess I should write it up here. This is 25. This is 30. 25 minus 30, whoops, is 5. Okay, and you can do the same thing in the graph. 30 minus 25 is 5. Okay, so to find the distance between your x-coordinate or your y-coordinates, you can subtract. And if we're talking about rise, we're talking about our y's, and run, we're talking about our x's. So all you need to do is subtract the coordinates, and you have your slope equation. Okay, rise, I would take my y-coordinate and subtract my other y-coordinate, but since they're both y's, I want to know that they're two different y-coordinates. So I'll call this y1 and this y2. The first y-coordinate minus the second y-coordinate. And I'll do the same thing with the run, but run, you're subtracting your x's. And so I'll call this the first x-coordinate and this the second x-coordinate. And if you subtract them, you get the distance, which you can see very easily on the graph here. But if you don't have a graph, this is your go-to equation. So how do you calculate the slope for any line? You have option 1. You can look at the graph and count. Or 2, you can use the equation below. Okay, don't forget to watch your signs. So you're going positive, positive. You might get some negatives here. If you're subtracting, like, let's say your coordinates are 2 minus 5 would be negative. So just make sure of that, as that's a common mistake. But otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. So that's how you measure the slope. It'll help tell you steepness of the line, which in context tells you a lot about your business. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and have a good rest of your day.